You know that feeling, right? You're just staring off into space, looking at something totally random, and then, boom, a face is staring right back at you. It's this weird, kind of funny experience we've all had. But have you ever wondered what's really going on in your brain when that happens?
I mean, it could be your breakfast. One second, it's just a piece of toast, and the next, it's got two eyes and a little mouth. You kind of laugh, maybe you snap a picture of it.
Or maybe it's the stuff you see around your house every single day. That electrical outlet on the wall all of a sudden looks completely shocked to see you. It's funny, it sticks in your head, and once you start noticing it, you see it everywhere.
And of course, there's the all-time classic. Just lying back, looking up at the clouds, and finding faces or animals. People have been doing this forever. It's a totally universal human thing.
So what's the deal here? Is this just our imagination playing tricks on us? Is it a random quirk? Or could it be a really important clue about how our brains are wired to see the world?
Well, to get to the bottom of that, we have to follow the science. And this is a really cool scientific detective story about how a team of researchers figured out how to basically capture an illusion and prove what's happening in our brains.
First things first, this whole experience has a name. It's called Face Pareidolia. It's just the fancy term for seeing faces in random, unclear patterns. The name basically comes from Greek words that mean faulty image, which is pretty fitting.
But you can see how this would be a huge challenge for scientists, right? How in the world do you study something that's totally subjective, that's happening inside someone's head? How do you prove the brain is actually seeing a specific face pattern and not just, making stuff up?
This is where the experiment gets so clever. A 2014 study in the journal Cortex came up with a brilliant idea. They decided to not only look at seeing faces and things, but to compare it to seeing something else we're all familiar with, letters. And that comparison, well, that turned out to be the key to the whole mystery. So how'd they do it? Their method was amazing. They pretty much found a way to take a photograph, not of a real thing, but of the illusion that was happening inside someone's mind.
Okay, so here's the setup. They showed people hundreds of images of pure static, just random visual noise. But, and this is the important part, they told the participants that half of these images had a really faint face hidden in them. Then, in another round, they said half had a faint letter. All people had to do was press a button when they saw one. But here's the trick. There were no faces or letters in there at all. Zero. And still, people saw faces about 34% of the time.
And this is where the real magic happens. The scientists used this technique called a classification image. You can think of it like a police composite sketch. They took every single staticky image where a person said, "Yep, I see a face," and they digitally averaged them all together. The logic is that all the random noise will just cancel itself out, and what you're left with is a picture of the mental template the brain was projecting onto the stat.
And check this out, the results are just incredible. Look at that image on the left. When they averaged together all the noise where people thought they saw a face, this ghostly but definite face-like shape emerged. Now compare that to the image next to it, which is the average for when they saw letters. These are basically pictures of an illusion.
And this wasn't just a fluke. The researchers ran the numbers and confirmed that, yep, the pattern in the face image was statistically similar to a real face. And the same was true for the letter image and real letters. So this wasn't just some random blob. People were genuinely projecting a specific, consistent template from their minds.
Okay, so we know people are seeing consistent illusions. But that leads to the next big question. What is actually firing off inside the brain in that moment when you go, aha, that's a face? Are the parts of our brain that see real faces getting tricked too?
So, to find out, they had people do the exact same task, but this time inside an fMRI scanner. That's the machine that tracks blood flow to see which parts of the brain are working hard at any given moment. They were hunting for a difference in brain activity between the times someone saw an imaginary face and the times they didn't.
And this chart just says it all. Look at that first bar. That's the brain activity when someone saw an illusory face. It's a massive spike, way higher than when they saw a letter or when they didn't see anything at all. A very specific part of the brain was lighting up like a Christmas tree, but only for the imaginary faces.
So what is this brain hotspot? Well, it has a name. It's called the Right Fusiform Face Area, or just rFFA for short. And as you can probably guess, this is a little spot in the brain that neuroscientists already knew was basically a super specialist at one thing, processing faces. The scientists who did the study said it perfectly. The rFFA isn't just for seeing the real faces in front of you. It also kicks into high gear when you just think you see a face, even if nothing is there. That illusion is so convincing, it actually hijacks the brain's specialized face-detecting hardware.
And here is the final piece of the puzzle that just ties it all together beautifully. They found a direct, measurable link. The more face-like a person's imaginary face was, the more their rFFA lit up. So the strength of the illusion in their mind's eye was perfectly mirrored by the activity in their brain.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Why would our brains be built with a system that seems so easy to fool? Well, it turns out this isn't a glitch in our mental software. It's actually a really important feature.
This whole thing is a perfect example of what scientists call top-down processing. See, your brain isn't just a passive camera soaking up information. It's constantly making predictions and using what it already knows to interpret everything it sees. I love this analogy. Think of your brain as having a face-shaped cookie cutter. It's always trying to see if that shape fits onto the raw dough of information coming in from your eyes.
And it's not just that one little face spot working all by itself. It's part of a network. The prefrontal cortex, kind of like the CEO of the brain, sends out a memo saying, hey, we should be on the lookout for faces. That memo primes the visual parts of the brain, and then the rFFA gets the job of trying to find a match for its face template in all that noisy information.
But why is it so obsessed with finding faces? Well, from an evolutionary standpoint, this makes total sense. For our ancestors, being able to spot a face in an instant to tell friend from foe or predator from prey was a life or death skill. It is so much better for your survival to have a brain that gets a false positive, seeing a face in a cloud, than one that gets a false negative and misses the tiger hiding in the bushes.
So the next time you see a happy little face in your morning coffee or a grumpy-looking car, don't just write it off as your imagination being weird. It's actually a sign that this incredibly sophisticated, ancient, and absolutely vital system in your brain is working perfectly. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other shortcuts and predictions is your brain making right this second to build a reality you're experiencing?